Smo. It is Saturday, May 16th, and I'm just popping in here. I haven't actually finished any books yet this week. I mean, that's not a weird thing to say. The week really just started for this vlog, so if we're going as this is the first day, it's not so weird that I haven't finished a book yet. That being said, I'm kind of reading several books, and I'm not like committed to any of them. I'm currently reading, I'm still reading The Wedding by Dorothy West. I put that one down for a while, and I think I'm going to pick it back up, but it's not 100% yet. I read the first 16 chapters of Mabel because my friend is reading it and she wanted to buddy read it with me. She started reading it, she doesn't like it, so we'll see if that buddy read continues. That is by Sally Hepworth. I've never read any Sally Hepworth before, but she doesn't strike me as the kind of thriller author that I would be super interested in, but we will see. And then I'm reading Seven Empty Houses by Samantha Schweblin. This is a collection of short stories. It's a translated work. I believe it was translated by Megan McDowell. And then I'm actually also reading Dreamwork, which is a collection of poetry by Mary Oliver. I don't know why it's not in there. Maybe because I didn't know the edition. Oh, it's right here. This is the third, I think, Mary Oliver that I've read, and this collection has like one of her most famous poems, and I have to say that I'm getting on better with this collection than I have with some of the other ones. Like, I'm connecting more to the poems and I'm enjoying the poems more. So those are all the books that I'm currently reading. I do need to start a new audiobook because I can only read Mabel, which I got through Libby, when my friend can catch up with me because she's a slower reader and she's not reading it on audio. So some of the possibilities for a new audiobook are Peter Pan, because I read Peter Pan in Kensington and I have the audiobook out that has both. And then I wanted to read The Need by Helen Phillips. And then actually, I forgot, I did start reading an audiobook. I did start reading Model Home by Rivers Solomon, which is a horror written by a trans author. So that's very exciting. And another haunted house book. I did finish a haunted house book last week, which was 666 by Jay Anson. I do like haunted house books. Today we went to see my mom. It was her birthday last week and she wanted to see me and my husband, so we went to some garden centers and some gardening places to pick up some vegetables and flowers and things like that, and that was really fun. And then we went and ate Korean food, and I did not take a single shot of B-roll of the Korean restaurant that we went to, even though it was quite good and we enjoyed it. Tomorrow, I don't know what we're doing. Hopefully we're staying home for the most part. Maybe we're going to our local garden center to pick up some more flowers. I need to drop pots off at the coffee shop because I do their flowers for the coffee shop that I used to work at. It's still mini-May, so I still want to read a bunch more mini books. So when I read something this week, or when something interesting happens, I will definitely let you know. So we went out with my mom yesterday, and I realized that I had forgotten in the last video that I went to the Bradley Beach Library book sale. I think summer is upon us, and we just have so much going on in the summer always, which is fun. I mean, it's definitely when my seasonal depression is at its lowest, it's at its best, I guess you could say. So we just do more, but also I am not a person who likes the cold, so I don't like to go out in the cold. I don't like to go on adventures, and we went on so many adventures last week. We did so much. Even some things that we weren't expecting to do, like picking up my dad at the hospital after a procedure, and all sorts of things that I totally forgot that on Friday I went to the library book sale. So I just wanted to shout out a couple of nonfictions that I got at that library book sale. I got Sea State by Tabitha Lastly. This one was not on my want to read list, but I think I have wanted to read it in the past, and I think this is about a woman who, similar to Ducks by Kate Beaton, goes out on a oil tanker or oil, what is that called, platform, and her experiences. And then we have A Marriage at Sea. This is a true story of love, obsession, and shipwreck by Sophie Elmers. And I do believe that this one was on my want to read list. And this, I think, is about a couple who go out to live on a boat and get stranded, maybe. I did not have Translating Myself and Others by Jhumpa Lahiri on my want to read, but I thought this sounded really interesting. And also, I just read The Magical Language of Others, which I think would tie in nicely with this. I'm surprised that this wasn't on my want to read list, but Shelf Life Chronicles of a Cairo Bookseller by Nadia Wassef also sounded super interesting. So I think I only got about 13 books at the book sale this time, but I got some really good ones and some that I've been wanting to read, some that I've been waiting to read, and some that were unexpected and a surprise to me. So either way, very excited for that. I talked about what I was reading already. I still haven't finished anything so far this week. It's only Sunday, May 17th. Today, I think we're going to do our last, garden center. I mean, we'll go to garden centers more, but, our last planting, we're going to go out and buy plants for the last time for the garden, and then get lunch and bring it back and watch the Mets. And then I have to drop off the last of the flower pots that I made for the coffee shop that I used to work at. I also want to get ice cream because I didn't realize that the ice cream place that we like is open. It's the weekend before Memorial Day weekend, so this weekend is usually really hot and beautiful in New Jersey, and it's usually a time when people come to the shore because it's the last time that you don't have to pay to get on the beach. So this is usually a heavy beach weekend, so I think the ice cream shop will be busy, but I still want to go because it's going to be probably less busy than it will be for the majority of the summer. And my friend is in town. He lives the town over, so hopefully we'll get to see him as well. For the rest of the week, I have to work. It's a payroll week, so it's going to be a lot of work. And I feel like there's something else going on this week that no book sales. I think I'm done doing book sales until July, which is good. No, actually planned things, because next week on Memorial Day weekend we probably will do our normal routine, but we won't go out of our way to go to the places that tourists go because it's going to be really busy for Memorial Day weekend, but I'm sure we'll capture some of that at some point. So this week I think it's really just the last week of non-summer, so you'll see some of that. And when I read some more, I'll let you know. It is Sunday, so I'm a little past the end of where I wanted to end this vlog, but I do have some books to talk about. I didn't finish very many books until the end of last week. Did I talk about City of Ghosts? I think I did. I think I finished this last week. And then the next book that I finished was at the very end of this week, and that was Dreamwork by Mary Oliver. This is a collection of poetry by very famous poet Mary Oliver. She is really well known for emotional interior poems, but with nature themes and kind of combining nature writing and poetry and internal themes. Her most famous work, which is something about geese, flying geese, but you would know it if you heard it, was in this collection. But I also wanted to point out this section of this poem, which I thought was very relevant. It's called 1945 to 1985, Poem for the Anniversary. It's about the anniversary of the war, 40 years after the Second World War, the end of the Second World War. But I think it's relevant today, this little section at least. In the films of Dachau and Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, the dead rise from the earth and are piled in front of us. The starved stare across 40 years, and lush green musical Germany shows again its iron claw, which won't ever be forgotten, which won't ever be understood, but which did slowly for years scrape across Europe, whilst the rest of the world did nothing. So, seems pretty relevant to a lot of what's going on today. I have read two other Mary Oliver works before, and I enjoyed them. They were fine. They were later works, but this is the first collection of her poetry that I really got. That I really was oh, okay, I get it. I see why everybody's obsessed with Mary Oliver. I see why her poems are so hard-hitting. I see why her poems are so relevant. Even to this day, this collection was published in 1986. So just after the 40-year anniversary. Here we are 40 years later and her poems are still relevant. Here we are later and the topics that she's talking about still resonate. I get it. I get why people like Mary Oliver. I do think I have devotions, maybe. I do have a larger collected work of Mary Oliver, but I'm glad that I read this one. It will definitely help me to go back and read her other works through the lens of like having more of a connection to her work. The next book that I finished was Mad Mabel by Sally Hepworth. This was a buddy read with my BFF who lives in Ohio. She had originally wanted to read this with a little group of buddy readers that she has. They call it a book club, but it's just 3 people. And I was like, oh, I want in on that book club. So I put a hold on this book and I was able to get it. This is not the kind of book that I would normally read. This is not the kind of domestic thriller that I am necessarily interested in. I've read enough of these to know that modern thriller mysteries that are straight, that are domestic, are not really my cup of tea. My friend wanted to read it, so I read it with her. And I did not like this book very much at all. I don't think it was doing anything offensive. It did not offend me the way some of these modern thrillers do, but it was just a trope fest. It was just like one trope after the other, after the other, after the other. So Mad Mabel is about a woman, Mad Mabel, who we meet when she's older. She's 81 and she is living in a quiet community and she really only talks to her best friend out of the community, and she has like tangential relationships with the people around her, but she's not like super interested in getting to know them, and she thinks they're not super interested in getting to know her. When her neighbor unexpectedly dies, she is the one who like climbs his back garden to find the body. But when this happens, it starts off a series of events that show us that this woman Elsie is also Mad Mabel, the famous teenage murderer who made headlines 65 years ago, a serial murderer. So then we get flashbacks in time to that. So we're kind of dealing with Elsie in the present timeline. She's moved, she's changed her name, and she's starting to see that maybe the community around her is more interested in her, sometimes for bad reasons because she's considered Mad Mabel, and sometimes for good reasons. And then in the past storyline, we're meeting her as a child, and we're seeing all the events that have happened in her life that led her to be ostracized by her community and then eventually to become a murderer. And of course the story goes from there, and the mystery is finding out what happened to her neighbor in the present day and finding out her past and whether those two are connected. But like I said, this is like a trope fest. We have an older protagonist. We have someone who is maybe more skilled in murder and things like that than, she should be at 81. We have a child that attaches themselves to this older woman, and of course, the cantankerous / loving relationship that ensues. We have an animal that now this 81-year-old has to look after. All sorts of things. We have grooming. We have parental strife. We have young love. We have like all these things that are happening in the book. At every turn, there's another trope, and I'm only telling you the ones that are not even spoilers. There are some that would be considered spoilers that, of course, I wouldn't tell you. But it was just like every chapter was like another thing. And I did think that sometimes that made it kind of interesting because you were like, well, what's the next trope going to be? Like, what's the next thing that Sally Hepworth is going to like pile on? And I didn't hate the way this was written. Like, I didn't hate the actual writing style on like a sentence to sentence basis, but I did hate the like overall storyline. I hate dual timelines. I hate the idea of, and I've read so many books that I disliked with this trope of the young narrator and the old narrator. Since I read this one on audio, there were also dual narrators, which I also don't like. So everything about this I didn't like. Did I think it was offensive in any way? No, it was fine. It was like fine. And if you love this kind of book, maybe you would like it. But this was also obviously just like a cash grab. This would be great for like Garb August because it's picking up on this very current trope of like an older protagonist, but not doing anything special or interesting or new. So it was obviously just like a cash grab to cash in on that older protagonist. Did I think that the older protagonist was bad? No, like nothing was wrong with this, but like would I recommend it to people who love Mrs. Polifex series or Miss Marple or the Thursday Murder Club? No, because it didn't have any redeeming qualities that were like those books to make you want to read it. So it was totally fine. And those were the 2 books that I read this week. So let me know if you've read any of the books that I read this week. Let me know how your reading for Mini May is going. And I did want to say about buddy reading, I really enjoyed buddy reading with my friend. She also hated the book, by the way. So I hope we do that more because that was really fun. And I don't get to buddy read a lot. So I really enjoyed that. I know she is reading Lady Tremaine with that little book club that she has, but the hold on that one for the audiobook was like 16 weeks or something, so I can't get the audiobook in time to read it with them. Let me know how your week is going. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!